a Dear Media original podcast.
Hi, welcome to Good Instincts. I'm Shira Barlow, but you may know me as the food therapist. Join me every Monday through Friday for bite-sized episodes designed to help you close the gap between where you are right now and where you want to go. This should feel good, like really good. And it will, I promise. Today, we are joined by Siff Haider, wellness entrepreneur, founder of Arrae, and host of the Dream Bigger podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to chat.
This episode is airing on International Women's Day, and I think that that's really fitting because you're a woman that I really admire and you're a woman in business. And I think that so many people I'm finding are really enjoying learning about people and the way they're building their businesses, as well as just kind of the wellness of it all. And I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to Arrae and how you got there. And I know you moved from content creation to a business, which I think is really cool and I think people would love to know about.
So I didn't really set out thinking that I was going to be this like big entrepreneur. I mean, I look back on it and I was pretty unemployable. So I'm glad it worked out this way, quite frankly. But, you know, I got into wellness just because of, quite frankly, desperation. I had a very weak immune system my whole life. And in my early 20s, I ended up fracturing a rib from a chronic cough, which is crazy when you think about it for like someone who's like 20 to 23 years old. And at that point, I went to my doctor. I was like, what's going on? And she just gave me codeine. And I was like, okay, and then what are we doing? And there was no plan. And so I was like, okay, I've been going about doing things this one way for all this time and nothing's working, you know? I just keep getting sick. I didn't feel vibrant. I didn't feel like myself, you know? And so I got into holistic medicine because of that, you know? So I was just reading whatever I could get my hands on, like from functional medicine practitioners, naturopathic doctors, whatever books I could find, articles, whatever. And I started experimenting on myself. So that was kind of like my foray into wellness. And that was in my early 20s. Meanwhile, in 2015 or 2016 is when I went full-time with my blog. I was working on it on the side while I had a full-time job at a magazine, decided to go full-time on it and kind of, you know, was a content creator. And I would share like wellness things just because I was so passionate about it. And I was like, okay, like if this has worked for me, maybe it'll like help other people. That was always the kind of through line across my, I think like whole life, really. It was like, how can I help other women in whatever way, like feel their best when it comes to like the outfits I share or like beauty tips or whatever. So that was always my through line. And then in 2018, I was thinking about it and I was like, you know, I am essentially a hoarder of supplements. You know, I have all of these single ingredients and the power that they've had in how I feel on a day-to-day basis and how I can navigate these like niggling problems that make us feel suboptimal. It's kind of crazy the impact that it's had on my life, but it's so confusing for the average person. Like I've done years of research to be where I am and it's just not an accessible category.
Yeah.
And so that was when, you know, I was speaking to my husband, or back then my boyfriend, now my husband, my co-founder. I was telling him about it and he's like, Siff, like we have to do this. And so that was kind of when the idea was born. We worked on it and then launched Arrae in March 2020. So that was my whole origin story.
Wow. That is so interesting. And for anyone that hasn't listened, I just listened to the episode that you did with your husband on the origin of all of this. And one of the things that you guys mentioned that I thought was so brilliant, and for anyone that's interested and has a wellness startup or a startup in general, was that you treated your customers like influencers.
Yes. Very important.
I love that. Will you explain that a little bit? Because I think it's brilliant.
So when we launched our brand, we never had, and we were very intentional about this, we never had a specific box that would go out to influencers and another one that would go out to customers. We were like, we want to make the whole experience that a customer has when they open the box that they have bought from us so special. So for me, since I was a content creator, I would always get these PR packages, right? And the ones that really stuck with me were like something with like a personal touch from the brand. You know, either it was like a really nice handwritten note or like some sort of a component where I was like, oh my God, like I feel so connected to this brand. Like I know who's on the team. Like it was just like that kind of feeling. And like, it's like a really beautiful packaging experience. So for us, that's the experience that we wanted to give to our customers. So for Nish, who's my husband and my co-founder, for the two of us, we loved Polaroids. Okay. Our entire fridge in our apartment was like filled with Polaroids. And so we were like, what if we sent all our customers a Polaroid picture of the two of us with like a cute little like note right at the bottom where it's at that section where it says like, you know, welcome to the Arrae family, or like, thank you so much for believing in our product, or whatever it was. And that kind of took off because people, like, we have so many pictures of customers sending us like our Polaroid on their fridge. So for me, I think that, you know, customers are huge influencers because they're the ones who are telling their friends. They're like users of your product. And if they are made to feel special, then they become like such loyal parts of your community. So for us, it's like always been like something that's incredibly important. And like, I think a huge part of the brand's identity as well.
I think that's so special. When I heard that, I was like, oh, that is so, it's not just so smart, but it is so special. And I think that you do have that brand loyalty. And I've heard a bunch of people talking about the products. And I think part of that does come down to feeling really connected to you guys. So I think that's incredible.
Yeah. So it's, I mean, and we've made friends with our customers. Like it's like the craziest thing. We would do dinners for customers specifically.
Wow.
So like, you know, we've done like a bunch in New York. We've done a couple in LA and Toronto. And essentially we would just like invite 30 of our best customers from like a given city and like actually have like an influencer level, like gorgeous dinner at like one of our favorite restaurants at whatever city.
I love that. I also love your podcast.
Thank you.
And you have spoken to so many amazing, inspiring people. And I was wondering, I feel like you've gotten so many good tidbits. What is one piece of advice that has stuck out to you?
Oh my God, that is so tough because I've had such incredible people on my podcast who, I mean, I've learned so much from. I think a good one that kind of sticks out is probably Melissa Wood. I think she's a really good example of someone who really made her life for herself. She like designed her reality, right? So in that conversation, we talk about the fact that, you know, she came from a background that isn't reflective of like who she is today, right? Like you would never kind of guess that because she's this like positive, like, you know, full of energy, but that's not what she came from. You know, she came from like very modest means, and she really did work on herself constantly to become the person that she is today and continues to work on herself. So I think it's like a good lesson for everyone that it doesn't matter what your circumstances are today. It matters like how you are working on yourself to kind of become that version of you who has what you're looking to have in life, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. She just oozes this type of positivity, but in this really authentic way that is so contagious. And I can feel it like jumping off the screen every time I see her. So I'm so glad you mentioned her because she's someone who like really resonates with me too.
Yeah. And like, I think people see her online, and let me tell you, she is like exactly the same person. Just like lovely and warm and kind and just like good energy.
Good energy. I know. I feel that like no matter what she's talking about, I'm like, I'm going to tune into this.
100%.
You know, I know that you're a wellness junkie and that you've tried basically everything and that you are so knowledgeable in it. Aside from Arrae, although I would like to know your favorite product, like what's the thing that you're taking every single day?
So this is going to sound really, really simple, but let me tell you, simple is the best. 2 things. Number 1 is walking every day, first thing in the morning. Like, let me tell you, the way it shifts my mood is crazy. And I try to not like be on my phone when I'm walking and just like walk. I'm listening to like a book or a podcast, and it's such a good like feel good thing that I do every day. Also, you know, getting sunlight first thing in the morning helps with our circadian rhythm. It gets better. You get better sleep. You know, it's like you're just waking your body up naturally. So that's number 1. Number 2 is movement of some sort. I like to go to the gym, like weightlift, Pilates, whatever. Find a movement pattern that works for you. For me, it's like very important for my mental health and like clarity. So these are like 2 simple things. I would say like pretty much free because, you know, you can YouTube Pilates moves, like whatever. Like there's always a free way to like do these things, but they've had like an incredible impact on me as a person.
When you lift heavy, do you it at a gym or do you do it at home? Or
I do it at a gym.
Yeah.
But it didn't start off that way.
Yeah.
You know, it was just like weights at home. And now I go to the gym because I'm lifting really heavy now and I can't like have like barbells and stuff at home. But people can start like at home, you know, you don't necessarily need a gym membership. And by the way, maybe the gym isn't for you.
No, I know.
You know, like maybe it's another movement pattern, whatever it is. I think it's just finding the thing that you love and doing it. It's just, it helps me so much when it comes to like anxiety or like oppressive thoughts. Like it just gives me a lot of clarity. So those two things for sure.
I totally relate to that because I feel like, you know, it's one of those things that just moves energy around. And we've talked about this a ton on the show, and I've talked about it a ton personally, which is that I think sometimes when you get so locked into doing one specific thing and it has to be at a gym or it has to be at the specific class, it can feel like, oh, well, I'm not going to fit into my day. And I had this really kind of tough relationship with working out at home because it felt very pandemic-y to me. And then the other day I was like, no, because like on a day like today, I'm working from home. I have 20 minutes to do this thing and it totally shifts my mood around and makes
a huge difference.
It makes a huge difference and it's so helpful to not have that like black and white thinking around it. What from Arrae do you think are like what's the introductory product?
Introductory product is definitely bloat because I feel like it impacts like 90% of the population and it's like a very like, you know, relevant product. You know, if whatever you're eating is irritating your stomach, it'll make you feel good. It optimizes your digestion. So I feel like that's like a really good introductory product. For me personally though, when it comes to what I take every day, I would say it's Calm. So I take Calm every day in the morning and I do it because it really helps me feel like a more put together Zen person. So I have to take Calm before my podcast interviews. It is a non-drowsy formula. So you take it and you just kind of feel like zened out.
Great.
And it just helps me show up as like a better version of myself personally.
Amazing. That sounds like something we could probably all get a dose
Totally. 100%.
This episode, like I said, is from International Women's Day. And I was wondering if there was anyone from the next gen of wellness, that any female that was kind of doing cool things that you wanted to highlight.
So many, I would say. Like like a really good person who I love and who, I mean, has an incredible product, fellow entrepreneur, Sabina. She's the founder of Deux, the cookie dough brand.
Yes.
She's a really good friend. And I think just her company is incredible. She's so inspiring, a great friend. And yeah, I love her. I'm like rooting for her.
Oh, I love that so much. I wanted to shout out, we had this girl on the podcast. Her name is Paige Lindgren.
Yeah.
So I didn't even realize how young she was. She's so impressive.
Wait, how old is she?
She's like 24.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Incredible.
I know. And she, for anyone that hadn't heard the episode, she is this amazing hormone specialist. And I was just really impressed by her. And I thought the thing that was really cool was that I think a lot of people don't start thinking about female hormones until it's time to conceive.
Oh my God.
And it's really just about that. And she's
So
out there
important.
24 just being like, no, we should all feel good and like know about our cycles and know how to eat and move and support ourselves so that we're feeling our best throughout the entire cycle. No one was talking about that when I was coming up. And I think it's really cool.
I love that. And for me, hormones is like, I'm obsessed with hormones. Okay.
Yeah.
A really good, another resource I will share, female wellness person, Dr. Stephanie Estima. Everyone should read her book, The Betty Body. It is life-changing. Like I have recommended it to my mom, my best friends, like younger friends, you know? So it's an incredible book all about hormones, female wellness, body, all of that. So highly recommend.
Amazing. Okay, that's an amazing resource. You talk so much on the podcast about big ideas and advice. And I was wondering if you had any special advice for female entrepreneurs or anybody really coming up in business or wellness.
I would say, so we have like certain dreams of what we want our lives to be, right?
Yeah.
I think even if you're not nearly there, starting to behave like that version of you is incredibly important. So for me, every morning I have a journaling practice, which is like, and a lot of the times it's future you journaling. And what I do during that practice is I write about my life as though I am that version of me that has that North Star goal, right? So say, for example, I don't know, it's like a big business goal, right? Like Arrae is at this part in its like journey. Who am I as a person at that point? What are my habits? What am I waking up and doing? How am I reacting to things? And I get really granular about it. And what that does is, even though I may not be there today, I show up as that version of myself, you know? And I think it just like, it guides me to the right direction. So I think it's a really interesting exercise because, say, for example, I don't know, like you're not where you are in your career. Ask yourself, like, you know, if you want to be at like the top of the company that you're working for, what kind of habits does that person have? You know, like what time are they waking up? What are they doing immediately upon waking up? Like, what are they going to bed with? Like, what are the things that they're doing on a day-to-day basis? So I think it's just an incredible, like helpful exercise, which I think, yeah, has like really shifted the way that I show up.
I love that so much, especially we've talked so much about all this research on future self and how a lot of people actually think about their future self as a completely different person from them, which is why it's really hard to make choices now that benefit ourselves in the future. Because in some ways we have to kind of sacrifice little small things or just do kind of annoying things in some cases that are going to help ourselves out later on. And the thing that helps it is if in a really, really grounded way, you can imagine on, like you said, a really granular level. And so it sounds like you have this amazing connection to your future self. And so it makes it a lot easier to act in ways that really do that future self a favor.
Yeah.
Which I think is amazing.
Yeah. It's a hot tip. And I think everyone should do it.
I love that. Siff, this was so fun. Where can we find Arrae? Where can we find you?
Arrae, you can buy on arrae.com. You can follow us on social at arrae.co. You can find me personally at Siff Haider on all social media platforms, and my podcast, the Dream Bigger Podcast, wherever podcasts are found.
Also on Dear Media.
Also on Dear Media.
Thank you so much. This was so fun.
Thank you for having me. This was great.
Thank you so much for listening to Good Instincts, hosted and written by me, Shira Barlow. You can find me on Instagram at Shira_RD. Good Instincts is a Dear Media daily,